Hey guys, I have to sit here and paint a whole bunch of little Mothman eyes for our earrings, so you can join me. And I thought I would sit and tell, I guess, a little scary story, because who doesn't like a scary story, right? Except it's real. Well, it is. So I've lived a lot of places in my life, and I grew up in New England, and specifically Rhode Island. And Jesse and I, my husband, at one point, we moved to Attleboro, Massachusetts, and we opened an airsoft store. We had like a indoor and outdoor field and sold airsoft stuff and had some arcade games and whatnot. So, at any rate, we had like the crappiest apartment ever. And it was like a 1-bedroom. It made no sense at all the way it was laid out, because it was one of the old houses that was like almost 200 years old, and it was 3 floors, and it was meant to be like a single family home. And you know, those old houses, what they would do is they just divide them up into like apartments that had like no rhyme or reason, and just stick like random bathrooms where they had to for like code purposes, like really minimal code purposes. And then there you go, it's an apartment. So this house is really old, and I guess it used to be like a doctor's office or something like that, because down in the basement there was still like creepy old chairs, and like everything was still there. They just left it there. Our apartment was on the 2nd floor, and it was super small. And then the back side, which was technically our front door, was like a really crappy deck and stairs that went up to our door. And then the front of the building had like one of those cool winding staircases that went like all the way up, and it had a door for each floor. And it was like really, really loud and creaky. Nobody actually used it because no one actually came in the front of the building. They came in from like the parking lot. So there was no one living on the 3rd floor. It was vacant the entire time that we lived there. But down at the airsoft store, I had heard from like, and this is after me hearing stuff and being freaked out, but I had heard from 2 different people who had nothing to do with each other, that particular house was haunted, and it was the 3rd floor apartment, and they knew people who lived there, and there was like a ghost of a guy and kids. So my experiences there freaked me out something awful. Like, I'd be there alone, like Jesse would be at our airsoft store because I wasn't like working that day or whatever, and I'd go home and I'd be there, and you could hear clear as day kids saying mama and running back and forth like upstairs. Like, it was like there was kids there, except obviously there wasn't. And I'd be like sitting in the living room, and there was like a hallway to the left where like the bathroom and the kitchen was, and you just felt like really uncomfortable. Like, it felt like someone was watching you, and then out of the corner of your eye you would see what almost seemed like kid height, someone kind of like leaning around the corner and like looking at you. It freaked me out like bad. It was like non-stop, to the point where I would get in my car and drive down to the airsoft store and just sit there with the guys until Jesse was done working, because I was like, I don't want nothing to do with being in that apartment. No. It really, really, really bothered me, and the only way I was able to actually get it to stop was, I have some very cool family members, and they're very into certain beliefs and things. So like, one of them was very into like crystals and whatnot, which, I mean, I've never been like super into crystals or any of that, but so she said I had to just believe that it was gonna stop and I had to ask them to stop, but I had to mean it, and I couldn't like be afraid. Like I had to just be like, no, you need to stop now. And then she gave me school rock thing. She told me to put it up on like the door frame, like because those old houses, they all had like decorative door frames like that stuck out like far enough where you could put something on it. And I did that, and I said, please stop, like leave me alone. And eventually it did stop. But like just in that apartment, like you could still hear stuff upstairs. Very spooky stuff. Not cool. And I think that's like one of the things that desensitized me to like spooky ghost things, because I've actually encountered quite a lot of like real things, and over time, the more and more you like experience it, like the less scary it is, I guess. Like it's not, you just kind of get used to it, I guess. But I even had a friend who at the time, like he was like a legit ghost hunter, and him and the people that he worked with would go to certain places and do recordings and all this stuff and try to like gather legitimate evidence. And he came over one night, and me and him sat on the stairs in that hallway. Like we went up to the 3rd floor and sat on the floor like right outside of the door, and we got recordings on the little like EVP recorders. They're basically just like a voice recorder, but they pick up like every little tiny sound. And we got recordings of kids talking. Like, there's some freaky stuff. And I have those recordings somewhere in the recesses of one of our computers. I will find them someday. But yeah, that apartment was freaking creepy. And there's like a cemetery like right across the street too, like a real old one that had like some of the headstones from like 1700s and stuff. But yeah, that was not cool. That was not fun. I did not enjoy that. Do not recommend. I'm glad that they weren't like angry or something, because jeez. But it was freaky, and I got over it. Knocking stuff over. But it was 100% like some freaky stuff. I mean, I have plenty more experiences I can tell you guys about if you enjoyed that little story time while I'm painting. So like this video, comment, anything to let me know, and I'll do more. All right, thanks.